Hi, and welcome to all our friends and colleagues of the American Acupuncture Council, Malpractice Insurance Company, and welcome to the inaugural show of what we're calling To the Point. This will be a weekly show that will allow us to disseminate information to you on various topics, but to try to keep you completely in the know, what's going on, what's changing. So we have several hosts. I'm Sam Collins. I'm the billing and coding expert that will allow us to disseminate information to you on various. For today, it always brings me up as the coding and billing expert. I'm actually a chiropractor by profession, but a coding and billing expert when it comes to acupuncture. I've been doing seminars for acupuncture with the American Acupuncture Council since 2001. We do about 50 seminars a year. We have some 5,000 attendees. And our whole issue of me working with you is going to be on provider compliance. We want to make sure that you have an office that's running well, that understands what's going on, and quite frankly, does a good business. Now, some of my professional background, I am a member of the Optimum Health United Healthcare Coding and Reimbursement Committee. Now, I do want to point out, I don't work for them. I'm sitting on an outside committee that we do get a voting privilege, but it does give me some insight what goes on with insurance, because certainly there are some insurances that can pay well, others don't. This gives me some insight there. I'm also very proud to be a USA delegate for the ICD-11 committee, and specifically for traditional medicine. So though it's not going to happen here right away, next year we will move to ICD-11 worldwide, which has a complete chapter for traditional medicine. So you literally will be able to make a diagnosis for chi stagnation. Now, my capacity here is, of course, we do seminars on coding and billing, documentation. I do lectures at most of the schools on that same topic. I guest lecture at the Council of Colleges, state and local associations, all. But my expertise is coding, billing, documentation, medical necessity. The compliance here is to make sure that an office understands what's the requirements, minimum to what would be a professional standard, and we're going to give you some help with that. But this includes things, not just coding and billing, but the outside of that. One of the things I focus on, and we'll be doing some of these shows, is dealing with insurance companies and understanding what they will or will not pay for. So by example, are you aware of what codes Aetna will cover, but will not cover? What conditions they consider experimental or not? What services? So we want to give a chance to make sure you understand that, because certainly there can be a good change or a good payment from some of these payers, but also ones that don't pay well. We deal with all the aspects, whether it's Anthem, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Cigna, workers' comp for that matter, or personal injury. Realize an acupuncturist can treat a personal injury patient. VA is now covering. We'll even discuss Medicare. No, Medicare doesn't cover, but you may have a secondary. So we want to deal with those aspects. Another aspect or an important factor that I like to focus on with you will also be how to set a fee schedule. Many acupuncturists open a practice and have literally no idea of what their fees should or should not be. We're going to get a chance to go over topics like relative value units. What's the value of one service to another? I also want to go over making sure, obviously, most acupuncturists will do cash practices, or majority. Can there be a difference in price? Can I do prepay plans? Can I offer discounts? Let's understand what's legal. We want to make sure that you're fully compliant. What we want to make sure ultimately, though, is that you're having a practice that you're enjoying. Acupuncture is really being recognized now for what it does well. In a very strange way, of course, the opioid crisis has created an opportunity for acupuncturists to really move forward. For those that have been in practice for a while, you probably remember a time when an insurance actually would say, we cover acupuncture, but not performed by a licensed acupuncturist. Well, of course, that law has been changed on the federal level under Section 2706. So we'll get into those factors about equality. But look at the changes we've run into. The Hospital Association now requires accreditation, but only if you've got acupuncture or some other types of complementary medicine associated. The attorney generals of the United States all made an issue that insurance companies are setting up their plans to avoid or not to avoid opioids and putting limitations. So there's been changes there. So Blue Cross Blue Shield published this year that they will no longer have the first or second lines of therapy be any type of pain medication. So that's a great opportunity for acupuncture. Of course, I'm sure as many of you are aware, the VA Choice Program too does cover acupuncture. We want to make sure that you have a practice that you're enjoying. And what an easy way to do it by providing this type of service that weekly you can tune in for a few minutes. It's not going to be a long program. That'll give you some good topics, good information, keep you on the cutting edge. And what I want you to be careful of is always vet and know who you're getting information from. Is it correct? The one thing I will say, for all the information I give will be based on law, on rules and coding regulations, not just simply conjecture because my friend said so. Not that that isn't necessarily good, but be careful. There's a lot of bad information. We want to make sure it's right. I work with the American Acupuncture Council. I am their expert when it comes to audits and other factors. And so they want to protect you, because if you're not buying malpractice, they're not in business. So we have a very vested interest in your success. That's what these shows are intended to do. And so not only will I be there, but there'll be other speakers as well. And we have an expert that I think you'll really enjoy. He is well renowned as far as fertility and other things, but his name is Lorne Brown. And let me have you a few minutes. Lorne, come on up and tell us about what you're going to give us.
Thank you very much. So the title of my lectures will be called The Tao of Success and Abundance. And really, it's about helping practitioners find that abundance, both financially and in the joy in their practice, and doing it with integrity. I have this diagnosis of dual or multiple personality. I'm both a doctor of Chinese medicine and I'm a chartered accountant, a CPA. So what I like to do is bring that together and help my colleagues find that success. We've gone into the healing profession to help people. We want to help heal our communities. But what's happening in the industry is that practitioners are struggling. They can't keep their doors open, so they're not able to help heal their communities. What's happening is they're actually taking on part-time jobs or having to leave the profession altogether in order to make a living, to provide shelter, food, and abundance for themselves. So we need more prosperous acupuncturists. So that's what we're going to talk about. And I'm going to do it from a Chinese medicine perspective. I'm not going to put on my CP hat and talk about debits and credits. I'm going to get into the heaven aspect. You know, there's heaven, there's human being, and earth. I'm going to teach you how to connect to that heaven aspect and manifest it on a physical level. And I'll use terms like Chinese medicine. So for example, when yin and yang are out of relationship, we know we get disease. And when yin and yang separate, there's death. Well, the same thing happens in our practice. Because like it or not, you are in business. You're just in the business of helping and healing people. So you are blessed to be able to get paid to help people. However, because you're in business and you're a small business, you're at risk of failing. Why? Because the nature of small businesses means that you're at risk of failing because you lack the financial resources and the people to get things done. You can't be both an excellent acupuncturist, an excellent marketer, a web designer, a receptionist. So you don't have all that. So small businesses in general are at risk of failing. Add to it that acupuncturists are in denial that they're in business, even it multiplies your risk of failing. So when yin and yang are out of relationship, when you only focus on your clinical skills and you neglect your entrepreneurial skills, your yin and yang are out of relationship. And if you do it to such an extreme that yin and yang separate, you actually have to close your practice. So my role here is to help you get that yin and yang into balance, and so that you can make a great living with integrity. The key is with integrity, so you can keep your doors open, you can have the abundance, you can become an influencer in your community where you're healing people and you're changing things in your community, having the money to go on holidays so you can heal thy healer, and having the money to give to organizations you like. So my lecture series will be called The Tao of Abundance and Success, so you can find that success and abundance both in joy, loving your practice, and financially, all with integrity. So thank you very much for having me on the panel. And I'm looking forward to bringing my two personalities as a CPA and a doctor of Chinese medicine into one to help you, my colleagues, because we do need more prosperous acupuncturists to help heal our community and our planet Earth. Next, we have a good colleague of mine is Virginia Doran. Go ahead, Virginia.
Thank you, Lorne. I'm going to speak, my program is going to be called Optimum Health and Ageless Beauty, Ancient Wisdom and Modern Application. So I'm going to approach this from both a TCM and a Western perspective. The importance of the Western perspective is it gives you a way to explain it to other health practitioners, to your patients, so they understand what you're doing, and it may even enrich your understanding of things. I'm going to talk certainly about the benefits, but not just the usual list of benefits you see on so many websites that I came up with 23 years ago, but benefits in more detail. So using modern research on this subject, as well as point-specific research. And I think that's something that can be useful for anyone, even if they're not doing something like facial rejuvenation or facial cosmetic acupuncture. The value of having this in your practice is you can save patients from going down the road of what in some cases might be risky cosmetic surgery or things like Botox, but we have to know about the contraindications. And that's something that is a little bit outdated what I'm hearing the recommendations on. People are saying things like, oh yeah, just wait 10 days before, needling in an area where there's Botox. Well, even if you're needling for some other reason than an aesthetic one, you need to know how long to wait. You need to know about that substance that the patient is using, because there's a lot of concurrent use, and patients don't understand it, and neither do some of the doctors. If you ask them, how long should I wait before needling locally on this patient? Well, I've been researching this for years, and speaking about it with certain doctors who both do acupuncture and fully understand it. A lot of the acupuncturist doctors from Europe who really have a good foundation in acupuncture and Chinese medicine, and really want to create safe practice guidelines and share those with you, because I think it will be very valuable for anybody who does come in for this, even if you're doing regular acupuncture with them. I think, so many of these things are so new, the combination of things, that there really is nothing written on this out there. So I want to share with you what I've found with that. Also, we'll talk about, the very specific things like skin aging and sunscreen and the new recommendations for that. We'll talk about needle technique and just so many aspects of something like, quote, cosmetic acupuncture. I'd even like to get into eventually breast acupuncture. I have so many ideas. I had a list that could go on for years. So I hope the program is successful so I can continue to keep sharing these things with you. So I would like to now introduce the next speaker, Poney Chiang.
Thank you. I'd like to start a little bit about myself. I'm a native from Taiwan, and I live in Toronto, practice in Toronto. Have a doctoral degree from the University of Toronto. My topic is basic medical science research, very, very hard science. Some people say molecular biology. And after I graduated with a Western research background, then I went to study Chinese medicine. I went to Pacific College of Oriental Medicine in New York, got a master's degree there, and I came back to Toronto, been practicing ever since. And I like to call myself an accidental acupuncturist, because the truth is, when I started, I wasn't really interested in acupuncture. I went to school for herbal medicine, and but my patients came and they needed help for pain problems, and I realized I wasn't very good at it. So I needed to educate myself. I had to take continuing education courses, and it wasn't until that I started educating myself that I rediscovered acupuncture, and what I mean by that is that I was able to combine my background in Western science, going to the medical literature, which actually had led to me doing a lot of dissection with cadavers, and now I'm doing some research using MRI to look at the anatomy of acupuncture points. But even though Western science is near and dear to me, it's important that we don't forget where we come from. I think if we cannot move forward if we don't actually have a good idea where we came from. So what's important to Chinese medical practitioners is the medical classics. So my passion is to recognize, identify the parallel between the classics and the modern research. And so those are some of the information I'd love to share with you on my show. My title of my show is called Spiritual Pivot, Dissection, and DeQi Response. So obviously that tells you we're going to be looking at classics and dissection. But the reason why I want to focus on DeQi response is because I think everybody goes to school. We know that DeQi response is very important for the efficacy of acupuncture. But unfortunately, there's not a lot of instruction on what is the proper DeQi response. And it's also a little bit naive to think that DeQi response will be the same for all 300 or 400 points in the body. There should be different DeQi response for different points. So how do we recognize it? How do we confirm we've properly obtained it? In my humble opinion, the answer for that lies in the anatomy of the point. So I would love to show you, during my future show, beautiful dissection images I've collected. Some of these are actually going towards a textbook that I'm writing with Paradigm Publication. I'm co-authoring with Andy Ellis and Nigel Wiseman. So hopefully that'll be out in a year or so. And I just want to finish by saying that once you have a good understanding of the DeQi sensation and anatomy of that point, what that means for our profession is that we have something that's reproducible and standardized. Because one of the criticism of our profession is that acupuncture is not reproducible. Now, if you look at a study that looks at the point, the study uses Sanjiao 5, for example, in that study, and another study also uses Sanjiao 5 in that study. Are they really stimulating the same thing? Because no one has really agreed on what is it they're stimulating. If we can standardize the target using our understanding of anatomy, then it's possible to actually compare apples to apples. Then the results will be reproducible. Then people are not going to be able to say, skeptics are going to be able to say acupuncture is not reproducible, because then everybody can actually be agreeing on exactly what they're doing. Right? So thank you very much, everybody. And it is my honor to introduce our last host, Mel Harper Kopelman.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the AAC for giving me this opportunity. This is such a fantastic group to be working with. So my name is Mel Harper Kopelman. I originally trained in acupuncture. I got a master's from the Northern College of Acupuncture in the UK. And I also trained and got a master's degree in nutrition and functional medicine from the University of Western States. And I currently practice and reside in Rhode Island. And I'm the executive director of Evidence-Based Acupuncture, which is a nonprofit that's producing evidence-based materials for all of you to use with your patients. And so what I'm going to be speaking about in this show is both scientific evidence and evolutionary biology. So that yin and yang of those two branches of training. So on the scientific evidence side, I think this really a lot of us are really interested in this subject. So even though we study this medicine that has these metaphorical models, a lot of us really are interested in science and anatomy and physiology. And even if that's not our passion, it is really helpful as a communication tool to be conversant with these terms and with what the evidence shows, and make that case really well for our patients and for our medical colleagues. And what I've found is that this is a lot easier and more fun than many people appreciate. So through the weeks, I want to be bringing different topics, bringing people up to speed, and helping people feel confident about doing it. It doesn't have to be scary and dry. It can be a lot of fun, but really, it's helpful because the conventional models are looking at the same people that we are looking at, so we can learn a lot by crossing these models. And also, I believe that it's just a helpful tool. It's helpful for us to have flexibility in how we communicate so that we can use our models with patients when appropriate, but that we can use conventional models or other metaphors when that's going to be more appropriate and more helpful for our patients. On the other side of things, I know that there's a growing interest in functional medicine and all that means, and I have a slightly different perspective maybe than others on functional medicine, and I really would love to share a lot of really useful tools and models and ways of looking at patients for acupuncturists that's consistent with what you already do and what you already know, and hopefully cut through a lot of the confusion. I think functional medicine in some ways is a really similar approach to Chinese medicine, and I think it was founded on similar principles of looking at root causes and understanding the difference between the root and the branch, with the benefit of lab testing and microscopes, which I personally believe that the original authors of the classics would have used if they'd had access to them. So I think it's consistent with our medicine to be conversant in this, and also a really huge benefits that we can bring our patients if we know how to look through a lab test in a way that's going to support them. But at the same time, I see a lot of people who are using functional medicine ending up with a whole lot of data without knowing quite how to organize it and how to make sense of it. Unfortunately, because of our lens of looking at patients, we're really good at that. We're really good at taking things and putting them into patterns. And so some of the topics I'd like to explore there is helping you get up to speed really quickly on either just knowing what tests exist and when they might support you, when you feel like you might be missing something with the tools that you have available, or how to use them yourself. So those are the two aspects of what I want to share with you over the coming weeks, and I really thank you for coming and watching us. So thank you so much for being here today, and hopefully that's given you a good taster of what's to come. And next week, next Wednesday at the same time, you can remember to watch To the Point, when our host Lorne Brown is going to be discussing the multipliers, hiring admin staff and associates. Thank you. you.